Free agency's in full swing around the NBA, but Miami has been dangerously quiet. What's the plan? Is there any move the team can make before it's too late? We'll break down the latest on today's episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right. Welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat, whether you're tuning in on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. I'm Wes Goldberg here with David Ramil. Both of us are credentialed Heat media members who cover this team every day for daily content on the Heat. Click that subscribe button on YouTube. Make sure you are following us on your podcast app. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins on FanDuel. I have a big show for you today. We're going to talk about what's left for the Heat to do in free agency and some options to fill out the roster. Then get into some of this new reporting about Giannis. But let's start with day one of free agency. David, we're 15 hours into free agency. We're recording this on Tuesday morning. We were going to record maybe something Monday night, but they didn't do anything. And 15 hours in, the Heat still haven't made a single addition. Now, things can obviously change here at any minute, but today we should at least expect a Kasparis to sign his rookie deal. He's eligible to sign that as of today. Nikola Jovic also eligible to sign an extension as of today, so we'll see what happens there. But in terms of outside additions, the Heat haven't done anything. And many of the best free agents have already signed. And Heat fans are frustrated, and they should be. Heat fans should be frustrated. This team was 37-45 last year. Got blown out in the playoffs at a historic blowout, wiped off the floor, embarrassed. And you keep hearing the reporting about, the Heat, they don't believe in the change for the sake of change. Well, this is not change for the sake of change. You stink. 37-45. Any change is because you stink, and you're trying not to stink anymore. And you're built haphazardly after Jimmy Butler sabotaged the season. You had to trade him halfway through the year. So that's why I say all of that to say this. This cannot possibly be the plan, David. I don't know what happened in day one. I don't know if they were trying to get some of these guys and were spurned. You've seen Nickeil Alexander-Walker sign with Atlanta. There was some reporting on Monday that maybe Miami was trying to get in on that. All I know, this cannot possibly be the plan. Pat Riley, Andy Ellsberg, Nick Garrison, Adam Simon, Eric Spoelstra, these guys are too smart, too savvy to think that, 37-45, blown out by the Cavaliers, that's good for us. We feel really good about where this roster is. I have to believe that the Heat are working on something, if only to maintain my sanity, David.
I think that's a great strategy on your part, and yet I think that's unfortunately not the case. I don't see any plan from them because that's not how this team operates. They make a splash. They do it right away. If they have something that they're interested in, they pursue it and they go after it before anybody else does, because that's just how this team has always worked. And so the fact that here we are a day into free agency and nothing's happened yet, I don't know if there is a move to be made. I think they're waiting for the detritus to fall to them rather than being aggressive and active in pursuing something. They made Kevin Durant and the pursuit of Kevin Durant their priority. And as much as we talked about them having to have some kind of a plan B or a plan C or a plan W at this point, I don't know that there is one. And I'm not sure what's left, because this team obviously needs a lot more help than they're capable of getting. And there's nobody left on. I don't think there was any big name on the free agency market to begin with that was going to substantially alter the outcome of this team. But either the move is Kuminga in a sign and trade deal. Maybe they're just working out those details, and that's fine, I guess. And I mean, look, I guess it's an okay move, and I don't want to undersell the addition of Kuminga because there's promise there. He's a young player, and you're kind of resetting the table in terms of your I can't even call it a championship window anymore, but whatever this next iteration of the Heat team is, you're kind of resetting that with a younger addition in Kuminga. If in fact that's the deal and they're just kind of hammering out details. But that's not to say that they couldn't add some kind of key role player who could make some kind of a substantial addition or just contribution to this team. They don't have that kind of player. Look, You almost don't want to besmirch the roster as currently constructed, because
Why not?
Jaime Jaquez Jr. could have a bounce back. Nikola Jovic could be healthy and make an impact. Hell, maybe even Terry Rozier becomes a functional NBA player again. But that's banking on a lot and hoping for a lot. And as many a wise person has said before, you can crap in one hand and wish in the other, and you get basically the same exact thing. And right now, the Heat don't have much other than crap in their hands, and they just, that's what the record from last year reflects. So I don't know. You better make some kind of a change soon.
We should be besmirching the roster. We should be holding this front office accountable. If this is the team going into next season, that is malpractice. It is unacceptable. I don't care about we don't change for the sake of change, and 2026 is the big summer and all this stuff. You cannot possibly put this product back in front of your fans. That would be ridiculous. Make change for the sake of change. This team stinks. You won 37 games last year. You got completely outclassed in the playoffs. You're not close to doing anything. And the timeline isn't even, it'd be one thing if they won 37 games with a bunch of young players. You're like, oh, yeah, you know, they got some playoff experience. We feel pretty good about this. I don't know what, Bam Adebayo is 27 years old. He's been in 2 NBA finals. I don't really know what the plan is. Look, I'm not going to, we are 15 hours in and it feels like an eternity. We are not even 24 hours into free agency. Things can change very quickly. You might be right, David. Maybe it is a Jonathan Kuminga thing. I said in the Locked On Heat live stream, kind of previewing free agency, don't expect the Kuminga thing to happen right away. These things are really difficult. These sign and trades are very, very difficult. It requires 2, 3, 4 different parties when you consider the 2 primary teams plus the agents and the players, plus probably multiple other teams to facilitate the trade, because, and you can go ahead and Google this, but just Google base salary sign and trade NBA, and you can figure out why this is so complicated in terms of Kuminga potentially here. But what I can't figure out is a couple of things. I don't know what the direction is.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to do the Kuminga thing, that's fine. I get it. And you got to leave the roster spot open for whatever reason. I get that. I understand that. But, like, why bring back Keshad Johnson? What was that all about? Couldn't you have used that roster spot if you were trying to be more flexible? I like Keshad Johnson. You couldn't just let him go and re-sign him to a 2-way contract? Why are we guaranteeing Keshad Johnson's salary for next year? What has he shown at the NBA level? Zip. Nothing. Waive him. I'll tell you, I could promise you nobody's picking him up. He would clear waivers. I guarantee it. I didn't understand that move. I didn't understand even, like, tendering. I love Drew Smith, but tendering him again as a restricted free agent, like, I can't on a 2-way. What's the deal here? And if you're a Heat fan and you're frustrated, I get it. I'm maintaining hope. I have to believe that there's something that they are working on, and I'll tell you why in a second. But because there are signs that they're working on something. But to see Nickeil Alexander-Walker sign with Atlanta, to see Tyus Jones sign with Orlando, to see the Hawks get better, to see the Magic get better with Desmond Bane, and the Hawks go ahead and get Kristaps Porzingis, teams in your own division.
Hell, the Hornets added Colin Sexton.
To see, Heat fan favorite trade target for the last 3 years. Colin Sexton goes to another Southeast Division rival in Charlotte, and it looks and to see Jordan Clarkson get bought out by Utah and then sign with the Knicks. I don't know that Clarkson would have been the answer. The point is, all of these teams around you are doing things, and you're guaranteeing Keshad Johnson's contract for next season. So if you're a Heat fan, I understand the frustration. Even if you're working on something over here, some of these other smaller things just didn't make sense. And it's really frustrating because we were so excited after the Kasparis Yakachonis slipped to us at 20 here. And that's fun, but that cannot be the plan, is to hope that a potential lottery pick slipped to you at 20. I cannot believe that was the plan all along.
Following the season, Bam Adebayo said he knew there were going to be changes.
Great point.
What was it? The man with the white hair, if he knows anything about it, he's going to make a lot of changes. Yeah, man with the silver hair. If he knows anything, he knows he's going to make some changes. And here we are with a kind of lukewarm pursuit of Kevin Durant. And that's it. So,
and then basically pulling out of Kevin Durant, basically being like, you know what? This isn't the move for us. If they wanted him, they could have gotten him.
The Heat are playing with fire. And I know that sounds like a pun here, but it's not. They're really kind of pushing things in a direction that is a little dangerous because you're at the risk of alienating a fan base that has grown apathetic about this team.
Yep.
Because following a championship run, an unexpected one in 2023, it's been met with nothing but mediocrity for 2 straight seasons. The loss of their star player, potentially viewed as driven out of town even by the same front office. And we see it. We see the fans kind of disinterested in
Every
what's
time
happening.
you and I see somebody that recognizes us from the show in person, what's the first thing they ask you? Are the Heat going to do anything?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It is this offseason so far can't be called a failure because we're so early in
Not
it.
over.
It's not over. But it's headed in that direction if nothing changes. And that's, I think, the frustrating part for Heat fans is that they just don't really know where this thing is going. We're going to take a break here. We're going to talk about what's left for Miami. What's left in terms of potential free agents that they could add with this 15th roster spot. What's going on with Duncan Robinson? What's going on with Jonathan Kuminga? Is there a trade out there? Then we're going to touch on the latest news surrounding Giannis's future in Milwaukee. We'll do that all next year on Locked On Heat.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights or golf out in the green or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little bit more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned over at the beach. Believe me, FanDuel makes it so easy to track your favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. It's easy to use. It's fast to pay out, and it makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. Whether you're watching placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet ride into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like you're part of the action. If you're new to FanDuel, this is the time to get involved. New customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. So open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com and get started. We'll be right back.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Best way to support the show, hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite podcast app. So it's day 2 of free agency. What is left for the Heat to do? I want to talk about a couple of available free agents here in a second. But the Heat, quick recap of where we are in terms of the roster. 14 players under contract. Duncan Robinson elected to use his early termination option and enter free agency as an unrestricted free agent. I want to start here, David, because something's going on here.
Yeah.
Duncan Robinson doesn't just give up $10 million in guaranteed money. That doesn't make sense without knowing that he's going to make that up some way or somehow. Something's going on here. And the fact that they didn't just re-sign Duncan Robinson right away leads me to believe that something maybe creative is happening here. Because Duncan Robinson, for those who don't know, like he had $10 million. Had he just let Sunday pass without electing his early termination option, which was that Sunday was the deadline for that, $10 million of his was guaranteed of the $20 million salary that he's owed for next season. He could have just said, I'm taking my $10 million, thank you. And if you don't want me on the roster, if you want to clear this roster spot, waive me. And they could have done that, and Miami could have saved $10 million. Instead, they saved $20 million because Duncan Robinson basically decides to opt out. That's essentially what this is. And that to me is fascinating. And like I said, Duncan does not do this if he doesn't know for sure that he's got $10 million lined up, that he's not going to be losing 10 mil right away.
Right.
And I think what happened here is that Miami got with Duncan Robinson and his representation and explained what their scenario and what their plan is. Either we're going to bring you back on a deal that you recoup the $10 million and maybe it's let's call it 3 for 30, 3 for 33, something like that.
Yeah.
And you get the long-term security along with it, and you get to stay in Miami.
Right.
Or we're going to make sure that you get that money somewhere else. And here are the options that we're thinking. You don't just no human being gives up $10 million for the good of the franchise that you're leaving, right? It doesn't make any sense. So something to me is going on here.
So I view the re-signing the more likely path there, although I guess he could be included. Could it be part of a dual sign and trade? Could he be on the way out to Golden State? So I mean, that is a possibility. But they already have Buddy Hield under contract too, so I don't. Yeah, maybe you're right. I mean, I'm thinking of the Kuminga deal being the most likely scenario. But if there's another opportunity there for to add another player, that's fine. But it would have to be, Duncan would have to be re-signed for at the very least $10 million per year, and it seems less likely with other teams willing to accept that kind of a size contract.
Well, unless that's the size that it has to be in order to facilitate that sign and trade.
Sure,
right?
I get that much. It's just I don't know. What, if you had to bet right now on the likelihood of him being shipped out somewhere else or him being brought back to the team, where do you stand? Because I think it's the latter. I think he's brought back. I think he's re-signed for a longer-term deal because they're just comfortable with him being in Miami.
I think that is on the table. But if that was the plan all along, they would have done it already. Especially if you look at the list of available free agents, he's among the best left. It's not an awesome free agent market now that the top guys have signed for the most part. I get Miles Turner is still out there, but Miami can't get him. So
yeah.
So if that was the plan, I feel like it would have happened already. That's why I think that they're working on something. But I do think that if that falls through, then yeah, we'll just bring Duncan Robinson back on a deal that kind of behooves both parties here. But I don't know. Detroit is still lingering as a potential team to go get Duncan Robinson. Even after LeVert, Jake Fisher reporting that they're still interested in Duncan Robinson, they could do it. They can also, if they don't have the cap space, that's where the sign and trade part of this all comes in. Miami could do basically what they got from Max Strus, right? They got a second round pick from Cleveland to help facilitate a sign and trade. That tends to be what happens here with sign and trades. It's better than nothing. And yeah. Duncan Robinson has to at least have some sort of idea of there's a team out there willing to give me at least $10 million this coming season. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on there, but I just wanted to point that out. In terms of the other things that could be out there, we've talked about Jonathan Kuminga, still a restricted free agent. There was reporting around Golden State that they could just say, you know what, there's nothing that we're really getting back in return for Kuminga that's worth it for us. Let's just go ahead and bring him back and see if we can, on a decent salary, let's negotiate a contract with Kuminga, see if we can bring him back, maybe trade him by February. Let's see, see how the market changes by February, by the deadline. Quentin Grimes, still a restricted free agent. I think he fits with a lot of teams. I think he'd be very interesting for Miami. I'm not sure if they could figure that part of it out, but it's at least interesting. Other free agents, I'm just going to name them, David. This tends to be what the audience likes. Russell Westbrook, Gershon Yabusele, Tim Hardaway Jr., Amir Coffey, Precious Achua, Chris Boucher, Trey Mann could be a little interesting after Charlotte re-signed or traded for Colin Sexton. Ben Simmons, that's a big name. Delano Banton, Cody Martin, Caleb Martin's brother, who was waived by Phoenix.
Yeah,
those are some of the free agent options.
DeAndre
Any of those names standing out?
DeAndre Ayton, you didn't mention him.
Okay, yeah, he's technically a free agent. I did not mention him.
You don't think he's an option?
I would hope not.
Why? Because I like that possibility. That one seems like, given his Bahamian roots, I think the idea of bringing back a young, talented player, like that's the ideal kind of project that Miami has during Pat Riley's tenure.
A backup center project? You're going to deal with this? DeAndre Ayton.
I don't think he's that much of a headache, right? I don't. I mean, look, I've never covered him to a
I
extent,
would disagree.
and I know
it feels like every
team
team
big of a headache.
Two teams have gotten sick of him. Portland just paid him $25 million to go away. I don't know why you would do that for anything that's not a headache. Frankly, I'm judging the actions. Two teams have said no, don't want it. Phoenix says we'd rather have Yusuf Nurkic. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, I get it.
And the project for what? Also, I mean, it's for your backup center. It's like,
yeah, I think it's an area. It's an area of need, and I think it gives you a little different 1-2 punch for a team that's kind of lacking size. I think you could, and look, this is a team that bets on itself all the time, and they know what they offer and what they provide. It could be Chris Anderson, or it could be Mo freaking Harkless. So I don't know.
Whiteside.
It could be Hassan Whiteside.
The thing is, what did they take away from the Hassan Whiteside experience? that we got a year and a half of good basketball from him, and then we paid him a lot of money that we couldn't get off of, but we feel good about the year and a half? Or, hey, the guy got this bag, that was probably a mistake.
Yeah. I think that's the better option there. I think they could use him for a 1-and-1 prove-it deal. He plays his butt off this year for Miami.
I think he's going to the Lakers. Starting job with the Lakers. Plays in LA. LeBron James with Doncic.
You see that? To me, I get that. I could see why that would be appealing. But he's not going to fit in there. He's not going to fit in there because LeBron runs a very tight ship, and their pursuit of a title, that's the main focus. For Miami, with not as much pressure, quite frankly, they're not really going anywhere. They have the opportunity to give him an opportunity to kind of grow and kind of continue to develop his game and to prove that he can play for a proven track record, a team with a proven track record of this kind of exercise. But I don't know.
You're in on Ayton. You're in on Ayton. I would rather, frankly, bring back Duncan Robinson than sign DeAndre Ayton. I'm not interested in it. I'm not interested in
Cody
it.
Martin seems like a done deal also.
Done deal?
Maybe I'm wrong there.
Are you reporting that?
No, I'm not reporting that. It's just, I mean, come on. Like the connection with his brother, and I think the fact that he loves spending time in South Florida already, it feels like that's...
It would be the most cruel version of running it back. It's like, we're not running it back. Okay, you just got the twin brother.
Got a different twin. The better twin, let's be honest. Like, I mean, Caleb wound up developing here in Miami, but Cody was always... They waived Caleb for a reason. They even Charlotte thought Cody was the better twin. So, you know what? That's the way we're going to sell it next year for the Heat fans.
The other option, so of all those teams, of all those players that I named, I would actually, if they could figure out a Quentin Grimes scenario, that would be very interesting to me. That's a high level rotation player.
Mitchell and Quentin Grimes. I mean, it's going to annoy the hell of a lot of teams out there.
Yep. Worth mentioning also, DeMar DeRozan still out there. Sacramento Kings, maybe the biggest losers of the offseason so far. They were talking a big game and have done nothing. Feels like something's got to shake loose. Malik Monk, DeMar DeRozan. Names I thought we've talked about before. Still have not gotten a resolution on what's going on in Sacramento. But things might be changing in Milwaukee. Speaking about losers in free agency, it's not been kind to the Milwaukee Bucks. We'll talk about what's next for Milwaukee, Giannis, and how the Heat factor in after this. All right, back here with Locked On Heat. Let's talk about Giannis. If there's a loser in free agency so far, I think it might be the Bucks. They lose Brook Lopez to the Clippers. Brook Lopez says, "Thanks for everything. I'm going to go be a backup in LA. I'm going to be very close to Disneyland and all the mascots and things like that."
That's it right there. That's it. Former Laker, back to Disneyland. Robin's already hanging out there. I mean, it's just perfect.
The Lakers were reportedly nearing a deal with Brook Lopez, and then Shams tweets the breaking news, and it's Brook Lopez signs with Los Angeles Clippers. And that was like, whoa, okay, that was weird. That's why I think that they're deciding I think they signaled to Brook Lopez, we're probably going to go the DeAndre Ayton route. Although I'm still interested to see what happens with Miles Turner here. I don't think until he signs with Indiana, as we've learned in the NBA, nothing's guaranteed until it's actually happening. So we'll see what happens with the Lakers. But Brook Lopez leaves Milwaukee. Milwaukee re-signs Gary Trent Jr. They re-sign Kevin Porter Jr. They bring back Bobby Portis. And Giannis right now has to be looking at this roster. You know, Damian Lillard, Achilles injury, he's not going to be playing next year for them. They're shopping Pat Connaughton, which it's like, okay, good luck. You know, are you going to improve the team by trading Pat Connaughton? Maybe they could still move Kyle Kuzma, but it feels like that's everybody. The league is pretty much told the Kyle Kuzma what they think of him. I don't know. I don't know what you're doing with Milwaukee, and it's why I think they might be the biggest loser in free agency, because now they're awful free agency so far. You know, if you're Giannis, he's overseas right now. What does he do when he meets with the team when he gets back? He's going to walk into a facility that he won a championship with Brook Lopez, Chris Middleton, and Drew Holiday. Those guys aren't there anymore. Mike Budenholzer isn't there anymore. There's reports from several outlets about now, from The Athletic, ESPN, about teams monitoring the situation in Milwaukee, and that teams might be preparing to make a run at Giannis, and it might be the reason why teams like Miami, Golden State, San Antonio, even though the Spurs They signed somebody. I forget who they signed, but they signed somebody. But for the most part, these teams have been really quiet in free agency, or in San Antonio's case, not really moving off of their best assets. There's reports that these teams might be preparing to make a run at Giannis, and they're waiting for that shoe to drop. And that to me is interesting, and it's worth monitoring, David.
Sure. Worth monitoring, yeah, certainly. It just seems like such a major domino. And again, that's just typically not how this period has entered, because this flurry of activity never happens. And look, this isn't just even about having inside information. The league knows when there doesn't even have to be smoke. There's just even the rumblings of spark that's beginning to form somewhere, and the rest of the league just goes on full pause, because that's just the way it operates. It happened in 2014. We didn't know what the hell was going on until LeBron kind of let everybody know this is what's going to happen. It happened with Kevin Durant when he left to Golden State too. There always has to be a major domino, and it has to be the first to fall, and that hasn't happened yet. And so I don't know. I'd like to believe that Giannis is on the table and an option, not just for Miami, but just in general. Like, if a move is going to be made for a player of that caliber, it feels like that should have already happened by now, because then everybody says, "Oh, wait a minute." That changes why I would want to either sign here or sign somewhere else, or maybe I might consider signing with whatever team. Like, Houston seems to be the big winner for agency. Why? Because they got their work done early. They added Kevin Durant, so everybody knows, okay, this is a team that's kind of all in. That not kind of, they're fully in on the championship pursuit, and that's why Dorian Finney-Smith is now a Rocket. So I don't know. I don't see it. I'd like to believe that Giannis is on the table, and if so, maybe Miami can get involved. And I think I think you'd have to include Bam Adebayo in a deal for that. I really do.
Perhaps.
And I don't know how likely that is, but
right. I mean, we got some reporting that they were interested in Andrew Wiggins. Now, I don't know that was connected to Giannis whatsoever. I would assume no, right? They're probably not being like, yeah, we really want Andrew Wiggins. We're going to start making calls and whatever. But maybe it was a Kyle Kuzma for Wiggins. I don't know what they were thinking, but we got some sort of reporting that they were interested in Andrew Wiggins and have been for a couple of seasons now. Tyler Hero, Milwaukee native, could just send Tyler Hero plus Wiggins to Milwaukee, plus draft picks and whatever else it is for Giannis. I don't know. I don't know what the idea is there. I don't know if the Heat have even gotten that far, right? You hope that Giannis decides that he comes back from his trip and it's like, wait, you did what? And this is it? And maybe he gets traded here, and then you just try to get into the sweepstakes. But I look at a team like Atlanta, who has quietly added 2 future Milwaukee picks with their draft day deal with New Orleans, and then a separate deal before. They have or it was actually the DeJounte Murray, Dyson Daniels trade. So 2 trades with New Orleans. They ended up getting 2 of those future Milwaukee picks that Milwaukee owed New Orleans, still from the Drew Holiday trade. And Drew Holiday's on his second team since moving on from Milwaukee now. Atlanta's in pole position here to actually go get Giannis, which would frustrate Heat fans even more that Giannis is getting traded, and not to Miami, but to a Southeastern Conference rival, Southeast Division rival. So I don't know what's going on here. I don't know what happens with Giannis, but it is something worth monitoring there. But to your point, David, that can't be the plan. If you want to keep your powder dry and try to chase Giannis, okay, that I understand. Atlanta's doing it while making moves. That's how you do it. Atlanta's doing it while adding Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Luke Kennard, Kristaps Porzingis, adding 2 New Orleans picks. You want to get Giannis? That's what that looks like. That's what wanting Giannis looks like. Not, I guess we'll just trade the stuff we have because everybody seems to want that all the time. Nobody wants any of your stuff. For Kevin Durant, for Damian Lillard, for Donovan Mitchell, nobody's ever wanted any of your stuff. Even if you include Bam, then it's like, okay, cool. Now we have Giannis instead of Bam. Are we a better team? Maybe a little bit. How do we fill the roster out, though? I mean, they are, but how do we fill the roster at that point? So there's a lot of issues with Miami, and they need to be addressing those issues while also doing it strategically, where you're either increasing what you have. Like I said, this is why you let your free agents go and then go use your mid-level exception on a real free agent that maybe a team like Milwaukee would like to have on their roster.
Right.
Atlanta just signed Nickeil Alexander-Walker. You don't think Milwaukee would ask for him in a Giannis trade? Of course they would. So, again, if you're frustrated as a Heat fan, I totally get it. I also cannot believe that this could possibly be the plan. I won't believe running it back with Jimmy Butler and doing it over the last couple of years is a little bit different, right? And the Damian Lillard summer was very different because they legitimately thought they were going to get Damian Lillard. And then they didn't, and they ran out of time. They have a whole offseason in front of them. And you've got Pat Riley and Bam, to your point, David, saying, yep, changes are coming. I don't know what it looks like, but I don't think change for the sake of change is change for the sake of change. I think change for the sake of change when you stink is a positive. So we'll see what they do. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I wonder, if they were willing to run it back when they were much closer to whatever it is that they view their ceiling as internally, as a, potentially outsider contender.
Right.
I think that's the real view there. Now that they're no longer in that same position, then they're far lower, obviously. Maybe running it back seems even more possible or more acceptable because it's like, well, we're not really going to do anything anyway. And that kind of fits in line with the whole changes. We're not going to make changes for change's sake. It seems like it's
the plan to get
everything.
Out of that, though.
That's
the problem.
The thing I can't. This is the team that has always been so active in making changes, and they always.
If you've decided that it's hopeless, then tank. Trade everybody. If the Heat have gotten to the point that you just said, right. David, it's like, well, we're this, and we can't really get better. Okay, then get a whole lot worse because you got your pick in 2026. You can't do this again.
No, you're right. I flipped around over the course of recording this. As pessimistic as I was at the start of it, I have to believe now that they're working on something. And it took us 30 minutes to get here.
I hope all our listeners took the same journey as you.
Yeah, it's what a ride, huh? What a wild ride. Because 30 minutes in there, I was like, this team has not done this ever. Running it back when you're this close because you've got Jimmy and Bam and Tyler, and you're hoping we stay healthy. We count on Terry Rozier. For better, for worse, those are the decisions you made. And it didn't work out the way you'd like it. It was still a successful run during Jimmy's tenure, and I don't think anybody would argue that. Even if you didn't win a championship, it was still a very successful run. Yet, being here now cannot be acceptable for Pat Riley's front office. He is not a person who's just like, yeah, I'm okay with mediocrity. In fact, I'm okay with being not that good. So he has to have something up his sleeve. This front office just doesn't operate like this. I don't know what the move is. I wish I could tell our listeners that I have an inkling as to what's taking place here. I don't know if it's just Kuminga. It almost feels, quite honestly, like it would have to be a wide sweeping change. And if that's the case, everybody's on the table, as they should, because this is a team that desperately needs some kind of an overhaul.
Well, hopefully we find out soon. For now, thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen today. For your second listen, find the Locked On NBA podcast where there is no offseason. Doug, Matt, and Hayes keep you up to date on contract negotiations, rumors, and everything you need to be the most informed NBA fan. Find Locked On NBA on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.